What's up, guys? It's finally here. We've got the first day of NCAA tournament action here on Thursday, March 20th. We're going to break down every NCAA tournament game tonight. We're going to look at bets on the side and over-under, and make sure you're checking that pinned comment throughout the day to see if there are any changes as injury news and player availability is confirmed. No real recap here, guys. None of the games are finished. We're trying to get these videos out as early as possible. I know you're all filling out brackets, all that kind of good stuff. Right now, we're just on a bunch of NBA teams and Texas, and like I said, none of those games are finished yet. A few of them are looking good, so hopefully we come into this fresh off of a nice day, but really no way to tell yet. Slam that like button. If we can get this video to 1,000 likes, we'll be giving away a Stump the Spread hoodie to one random commenter. And subscribe to the channel if you're new. Once we get to 50,000 subscribers on this channel, we're giving away another free hoodie. If you're a huge fan of what we do here every single day, you can sign up for a channel membership by clicking the little join button right below the video. Channel members get exclusive early access to all of my videos and their names up on screen in every video. But more importantly, you get access to our monthly members only giveaways. We are giving away a Stump the Spread hoodie to one random channel member on March 20th. So tomorrow, the first day of the NCAA tournament. So get in there early. Make sure YouTube actually picks up on the fact that you are a YouTube member. You can get in on the giveaway. Also, we have a huge NCAA tournament bracket challenge. The prizes are up on screen right now. We're giving away a bunch of different stuff. Money, $100 to first place, apparel, and we're giving away free memberships to stumpthespread.com. So definitely get in there. The password and the link are down in the description and they're on the screen right now. So get in there. Lots of free value out there. I think it's going to be a great time. All of us guys, everybody that's involved with Stump the Spread is in the mix. So it gives you a great chance to compete against us. All of our videos are sponsored by StumpTheSpread.com. We have a team of experienced cappers over there. All of us have at least 15 plus years in the industry, and together we cover all the major sports. Right now, our premium members are getting daily college basketball, NBA, NHL, and UFC picks. With MLB just now starting up, it's been our most profitable sport the last 3 years in a row. So click the link in the description to get to StumpTheSpread.com and see everything we offer, including free to use bet size calculators, exclusive free picks not covered in this video, and our premium top confidence picks. If you aren't ready to become a premium member just yet, sign up for a free account to get access to our email newsletter, which will get you free picks straight to your inbox every day and updates on results. Just make sure to check your spam folder. Comment below with any bets you're looking at today or any other feedback you have for me, and I will personally respond to you. As always, guys, our favorite picks will be in the pinned comment down below. Now let's get into our first game of the day, guys. We got number 9 Creighton taking on number 8 Louisville. This game, guys, kind of an interesting place to start. We've got this game going on in Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky. So I mean, it kind of feels a little bit like a home game for Louisville. Not going to lie, I do think they will have a very big share of the fans there in that building. So we'll see how that thing goes. Creighton comes into this game. They didn't have a terrible time out there in the Big East. Not at all. Actually finishing second overall behind only St. John's. The Blue Jays, guys, 15-5 in conference play. They did lose against St. John's in kind of a blowout to end their regular season, so that's a little bit tough, but they've got some big wins mixed in there, not against St. John's necessarily, but they took down Marquette once, they took down UConn, they did take down St. John's very early in the season in a one-point grinded out kind of game, but in their non-conference, they lost against Alabama. They did beat teams like Notre Dame, I guess, but losing against Texas A&M, losing against San Diego State, losing against Nebraska. They had their problems in their early goings, but it seems like things are a little bit back on track. This team has a monster leading scorer in Ryan Kalkenbrenner, nearly 20 points per game, shooting 65, almost 66% from the field. That is pretty bonkers stuff. Stephen Ashworth, a very solid point guard option as well. 16.3 points, almost 7 assists per game. This team gets it done kind of on both ends of the court. I would say sometimes on both ends of the court. We like what we see from them offensively, especially, they've got pretty legitimate, pretty dependable scoring options. The rebounding numbers, though, are a little bit concerning. They're not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. Like, they're not bad. I don't expect them to struggle on the boards in this matchup necessarily, but if they get, 2 down the stretch, that could be a problem later on in the tournament. In terms of their defense, it's also relatively solid. They do have, quite a few games against some teams that I would say aren't very good. I mean, you played Seton Hall twice, DePaul twice, Providence, and Butler, and Georgetown. You played all those teams twice. That can really help boost those numbers a little bit. So we'll see what Creighton can do here, almost effectively going on the road here in the NCAA tournament to take on the Louisville Cardinals, who come into this one as a 10 seed. They finish things up second or third there in the ACC, behind Duke and, tied with the same conference record there as Clemson. They got bounced out of their conference tournament by Duke, losing that one 73-62. So that's going to be a little bit disappointing. They did knock off Clemson there at the end of the year, so that probably feels good. This Louisville team, I'm not going to say they came out of nowhere, but obviously a huge improvement from last year. Terrence Edwards Jr., a monster, 16.5 points per game. Chucky Hepburn, another absolute monster. Like, this team's got some pieces, guys. They're an elite rebounding team. They're very, very good in terms of their offensive production. Their defense is also solid. And with where this game is being geographically located, I can see why they are favorites coming in here, guys. The Cardinals are 2.5-point favorites. We've got a total of 245.5. 1-3-1 against the spread on neutral courts this season, 19-13-2 against the spread overall, and they're a slight under team. Louisville 3-3 against the spread on neutral courts, which I don't even know if this really qualifies as a neutral court. 20-14 against the spread overall, and 22-12 to the under. So right off the bat, guys, I think this is a very, very reasonable spot to look at the under in this game. I don't think we're going to see a crazy amount of offense. Nerves in the opening round of the NCAA tournament are a very, very real thing. Guys having to shoot at strange rims they're not used to shooting at, also a very, very real thing. So I think the under, very, very live in this game. If you're begging me for a side, I am going to be leaning here slightly towards Louisville, just mostly based on where this game is located, but I think it could be pretty close. I don't think this is going to be a blowout either way. I still think the home court kind of advantage there for Louisville will help, but I think the under is overall the better play. Next up, guys, we've got the 13 versus 4 matchup. We've got High Point taking on Purdue. The High Point Panthers came out on top out there in the Big South, a 14-2 conference record, 29-5 overall. So some very, very positive stuff. They got a win over UAB there in the non-conference. That looked pretty good. That loss against Missouri State, pretty embarrassing stuff there, but beating American, another NCAA tournament team, at least technically. So we liked what we saw from them in the non-conference. Not a ton of big tests there for them. They took down Winthrop in a blowout there to earn this spot. So yeah, very good stuff from High Point this year, just in terms of, who they actually faced. When you look at their season-long numbers, like, congratulations on putting up the 19th most points in the nation, but you didn't really play anybody that tough. You don't have any really super scary leading, offensive weapons. The rebounding numbers are fine. The defensive numbers look very, very good, but you have to take this all with a grain of salt because they never really played anybody that crazy. So we'll see. We'll see what they look like here. Not an easy matchup for them right off the bat, being a 13 versus a 4. They're taking the Purdue Boilermakers, who were all over the place, to be honest, this season in the Big Ten. They finished the year 22-11 overall, 13-7 in conference play. They got bounced out of the conference tournament, getting blown out there by Michigan. Kind of an embarrassing loss against a Michigan team that's been a bit all over the place. This squad, guys, has a couple of monsters. I mean, Trey Kaufman-Renn, 20 points per game, almost 60% from the field. You don't see that every day. And one of the best point guards in the nation in Braden Smith, 16 points per game and almost 9 assists. So very good numbers across the board. We see, Purdue, top 80 in offense. They're a really bad rebounding team, though. That does scare us a little bit against a High Point team that's decent on the boards, maybe not great. So maybe we're not too scared. The defense there for Purdue, also not so incredible, but not terrible. And in their non-conference, anytime they were playing, like those cupcake games, they were taking care of business pretty easily. And looking at the numbers here, Purdue, 7.5-point favorites. We've got a total of 152.5. High Point, 3-4 against the spread on neutral courts, 17-15 against the spread on the season, and 17-15 to the under. Purdue, 1-5. Kind of crazy how bad they were on neutral courts this season, but 17-16 against spread overall, 20-13 to the over. So a significant over team, and I don't know. I doubt that I really want to be on over 152.5, but maybe you could talk me into it. I think the side you want in this one is Purdue. I think they win this game pretty comfortably. They're going to be relatively embarrassed, I would think, with how their regular season or, their conference tournament ended there, getting absolutely manhandled by Michigan. I think we see them come out with a lot of spit and vinegar and pour it on here against High Point, a team that I think is decent, but I don't think they're going to keep this to single digits, at least not deep into the game. Like, I could see this being close to tied at halftime and Purdue end up winning by, 10 to 15 points. Next up, guys, we're looking at number 14 Montana taking on number 3 Wisconsin. The Montana Grizzlies coming out on top out there in the Big Sky, a 25-9 record on the season, 15-3 in conference play. They took care of business in the conference tournament, beating UNCO 91-83. Very good stuff. They played well down the stretch this season. Really no major complaints for me about this squad overall. Like, Money Williams, 13.3 points per game, doesn't look incredible, but also, doing a good job getting everybody else involved. This team, though, their real flaw in my eyes, despite being a nearly top 100 offensive team, their rebounding numbers are close to 400th in the nation. And this squad does not play at a slow enough pace to really justify that at all to me. So not loving that, not loving their defensive numbers either. In their, step-up games, they got absolutely destroyed by Oregon, destroyed by Tennessee, lost against Utah State. Not a great time for them in the non-conference. Like, they lost a game against a Missouri Valley Conference opponent in UNI. Also losing against San Francisco, the Dons took them down. Like, not a team that had a good time in the non-conference. So we'll see what they can do here against a Wisconsin team that really has something to prove. And this game, while it's not happening in Wisconsin, it is happening up north, although Denver, I would say, is a little bit closer to Montana than it is to Wisconsin. So maybe this isn't going to be the big difference maker that you could think it might be. The Wisconsin Badgers end up with that 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, 26-9 on the season, 13-7 there in conference play in the Big Ten. This team got absolutely humiliated. They played a horrible game against Michigan to get knocked out of their conference tournament. It was pretty wild stuff, guys. Pretty wild stuff. You don't expect to see those kind of shooting numbers from a Wisconsin team that has been amazing thanks to their ability to shoot the ball. They went 7 of 39 from 3 in the game, and we saw one of the best scorers in the country in John Tonji go 1 of 14 from the field and score only 9 points. Bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Not what you would expect to see there from Wisconsin, a team that's been very good over the course of the year. So this is a huge, you can't hardly imagine a bigger bounce back spot. John Tonji puts up around 20 points per game and is a lethal shooter. This team is top 50 in the nation in points per game. They're also decent on the boards and a very solid defensive team as well. So there's really not a lot of things for me to look at as negatives for this team. I mean, they blew out some decent non-conference opponents, like taking down teams like Appalachian State and a crazy blowout beating Arizona. Like, this is a team that put up some good numbers over the course of the year, did a good job in a very tough conference. Wisconsin, they're 17-point favorites in this game. We've got a total of 151.5. Montana is actually 3-0 against the spread on neutral courts this year, 17-11-3 against the spread on the season. So that's pretty nice. They're also a significant over team, 19-12 to the over. Wisconsin, 5-2 against the spread on neutral courts, 22-13 against the spread overall, and 20-15 to the over. I just think this is too big of a bounce back spot, guys. I would love to be on a team like Montana. Like, we just haven't found a 4 seed so far in this video, or 14 seed so far in this video that we like, but it's tough. I think Wisconsin's going to win this game by 20 plus. They're the far better team, unless you're really going to draw some kind of sketchy lines about where this game is geographically located. I think you want to be on Wisconsin for them to get this game win in a blowout. I think they're going to bounce back in a huge way, shoot the ball much, much better. That can be a little bit sketchy. We are leaning on a team to shoot the ball well from 3 in an NCAA tournament game early on, but I think we're going to see that from Wisconsin. They've shown they can do that pretty much all season long. Next up, guys, we've got the dreaded 16 versus 1 matchup. We've got SIU Edwardsville taking on number 1 Houston. The Cougars, guys, the SIU Edwardsville Cougars, come into this game after taking care of business there in the OVC. They knocked off SEMO to get into this into the NCAA tournament, and the reward is a bit of a brutal matchup, but we'll see what they can do. They didn't necessarily find a lot of success in their non-conference when they were playing big step-up games or even some small step-up games. I mean, Rayshon Taylor, 20 points per game, 4 assists per game. The dude's putting up great numbers. Wouldn't be shocked to see him end up transferring after this game. We'll see what happens. You see these guys have big seasons for these smaller schools. They're trying to go out and get a bag there in the NIL, but this team put up good rebounding numbers over the course of the season. They're solid on the boards, so on and so forth, but are they really going to be able to do that against a team as good and as physical as the Houston Cougars? Houston obviously deserving that number, a number 1 seed in the tournament. They're 30-4 on the season. They ran roughshod over the Big 12, going 19-1 in conference play. They've done pretty much everything you could ask of them. They haven't got a ton of massive blowouts, but when you look at what they were doing in the non-conference, they had a few games, when they were going against, big step-down opponents where they got huge, like double them up kind of wins, winning by like 40 plus. So it's not impossible for this team to do, but it's not really their forte. This is definitely a defensive motivated squad. They play pretty well on offense. Like, they're a good offensive team as well. And the rebounding numbers are a little bit concerning. LJ Cryer, obviously a monster, but looking at the numbers for this game, we see Houston as 28.5 point favorites. We've got a total of 126.5. SIU Edwardsville, 2-1 against the spread on neutral courts, 18-12-1 against the spread, 16-15 to the under. Houston, 2-5 against the spread on neutral court, 18-16 against the spread, and 19-14-1 to the under. So you could definitely talk me into under 126.5 in this game. I think that's pretty reasonable, but on the same side of that coin, guys, I think you want to be on SIU Edwardsville at plus 28.5. I think they find a way to keep this game relatively competitive, and by competitive, I don't mean I think they have any chance to win this game or keep it to single digits or anything like that. But can they keep it within 25? I would hope so for their sake, but we'll see, guys. This isn't a play that's going to go in the pinned comment. These number 1 seeds, it can be a little bit rough to find the value on these plays, but coming up next, we have a shot to find some value, I think. So we're looking at number 16 Alabama State taking on number 1 Auburn. The Alabama State Hornets guys, 20-15 on the season. They had to, make it through that play-in game, and they end up getting a kind of miraculous 70-68 win there over St. Francis, PA. So well done there, Alabama State. The Hornets getting the job done. But this is a team that made it into the NCAA tournament, or into that first four in the NCAA tournament, kind of by the skin of their teeth. This isn't a squad that had a great time out there in the SWAC this year. Their season-long numbers aren't particularly impressive either. So I've got some question marks about this team for sure. They don't have a big-time leading scorer, and they're going up against one of the toughest teams you could possibly face in the entire country. The Auburn Tigers, who are 28-5 on the season, they got the regular season crown out there in the SEC, but got that a tough loss against Tennessee there in the conference tournament to not even make it that deep. So a little bit disappointing for them to come up short there. There are players like Johnny Broome on this roster that have big things to prove in the NCAA tournament this year, and Auburn's been proving things all season long. They finished the year 11th in the nation in points per game. Not a bad defensive team either. Their rebounding numbers are very good. This team has a ton of talent, a very deep well of talent, and they destroyed teams in the non-conference. So we'll see what they do in this one. They are massive favorites, guys. They are 31.5-point favorites. We've got a total of 149.5. Alabama State, 4-4 against spread on a neutral court, 15-18-1 against the spread, and they are 20-14 to the under. Auburn, 5-3 against spread on neutral courts this year, 17-15-1 against spread overall, and 20-13 to the over. I don't know if this is going to go in the pinned comment. It's a lot of points, and these are usually spots I like to kind of avoid, but I think Auburn comes out here and makes a statement with a massive blowout win. A bounce back after that tough loss against Tennessee. I think we see Auburn come out here, absolutely lay the wood, win this game by 40+. I'm not going to put a team that's minus 31.5 in the pinned comment, but if you're looking for a side against the spread here, I think Auburn is a pretty reasonable spot. Next up, we've got number 12 McNeese taking on number 5 Clemson. The McNeese Cowboys made it here into the NCAA tournament. Things got a little weird for them a couple different times in the Southland, but they managed to make it work there in the end. A 19-1 conference record is not bad. They did a good job against LAM, winning that game 63-54 to earn this automatic bid. No major leading scorers, and not quite the crazy offense that we became accustomed to seeing from the Cowboys over the last few years. And some kind of interesting news there, guys. Their head coach is actually leaving McNeese for that head coaching job there at NC State. So not going to be having their things are going to be a little unsettled in this program and for this team in general. And overall, we didn't see the kind of numbers we expected from them. And in the non-conference, they didn't have a great time either, losing to teams like Liberty, Santa Clara, losing in a close game against Mississippi State. Like, just not a team that had exactly the year I was expecting. And speaking of teams not having exactly the year I was expecting, we loved what we saw from the Clemson Tigers. They got a 5 seed, finished the season ranked number 12 in the nation. They were the only team worse than Duke out there in the ACC, and I believe they beat Duke once this season. So very respectable stuff there for the Clemson Tigers. They've been a great defensive team all season long. Their rebounding numbers maybe not insane. Their offensive numbers decent but not elite. Chase Hunter, a monster, 16.5 points per game, shooting 47% from the field. This team ran roughshod over everyone in the ACC, and they are staying very solid there at head coach. Their head coach, Brad Brommel, just, he's going to be there through 2031 with that new 6-year deal that he just signed. So a lot of, solidity there. Not so much of that going on right now for McNeese. Clemson, 7.5-point favorites in this game. We've got a total of 133.5. McNeese, 2-3 against spread on neutral court, 15-17 against the spread this season, and 16-15-1 to the under. Clemson, 2-2 against spread on neutral court, 20-13 against the spread this year, 17-16 to the over. I'm definitely taking Clemson here, guys. I just don't think McNeese is going to be feeling great with their head coach leaving. I just think that's going to leave a bad taste in some of the players' mouths. You're going to see a lot of dudes flock to that transfer portal. I would guarantee it, and I think we're going to see Clemson get a double-digit win in this one pretty comfortably. This is a play that definitely has a good chance to end up in the pinned comment. Next on the dock, we got a very interesting 11 seed versus 6 seed matchup. We've got number 11 VCU taking on number 6 BYU. The VCU Rams, 28-6 on the season, the top team out there in the A10. They took care of business there against GMU, winning that game 68-63 to make their way into the NCAA tournament. This is a defense first and all the time kind of squad, but Max Shugla, 15 points, 4 assists per game, looking very reasonable. They're also just barely, they're 99th in the nation in points per game, so a top 100 offensive team. The rebounding numbers also elite, and like I was saying, that defense giving up 62.4 points per game. Very solid stuff. in their non-conference, they didn't really play a ton of super tough tests. Losing to Seton Hall in Nevada doesn't look great. They also played a close game against a very bad Miami team. So we'll see if they can kind of shake that off. Obviously, this team looked amazing down the stretch. They did have that 3-point loss against Dayton, but other than that, looked kind of untouchable. But they're going up against a very interesting team here, guys, in the BYU Cougars, who finished the year 24-9, 14-6 in the Big 12, and this team can absolutely score it. They did lose in they got out-physicaled by Houston, losing that game by 20 points to get knocked out of the conference tournament, but BYU is a scary, scary team, guys. Richie Saunders, 16 points per game, shooting 50% from the field. This is the number 30 offensive team in the nation. This is a real clash of styles, guys. We got offense going against defense. BYU, they're going to get up and down. They're going to shoot it. They are more than happy to pull it from three. They're also a solid rebounding team, but a lot of those numbers do tend to come from their pace. So looking at the numbers for this game, BYU, 2.5-point favorites. We've got a total of 145.5. VCU, 4-4 against the spread on neutral court, 20-13 against the spread, 19-14 to the over. BYU, 3-2 against the spread on a neutral court, 20-13 against the spread, and 19-14 to the over as well. I think over 145.5 is live in this game. I don't think it's great, though. I really want to be siding here with BYU at -2.5. I usually want to trend towards the defensive teams in spots like this. And this isn't the biggest lean, guys. Don't get me wrong. This is going nowhere near the pinned comment. This is a very, very tight game. If you're looking for an upset, I wouldn't even be that upset about you taking VCU. But I think BYU is going to be pretty upset about how they played against Houston. I think we're going to see them shoot the ball considerably better than they have in the last at least one game, if not their last two games. And this is a team that can really shoot it. VCU can play some defense, but I don't know if they're ready for the level that BYU is capable of bringing. Next on the docket, we're looking at the 9 versus 8 matchup. We've got number 9 Georgia taking on number 8 Gonzaga. The Georgia Bulldogs, 20-12 on the season. They come into this game, only 8-10 in conference play, but that was in the SEC. They went on a nice little run there, winning 4 in a row before getting bounced out of the conference tournament by Oklahoma. This team can defend. They can score it a bit. Their rebounding numbers are not bad. They've got Newell, a very good leading scorer. Silas DeMay Jr., also a monster. So liking a lot of what we saw from Georgia down the stretch, but the real team we want to look at in this matchup is the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Gonzaga ended up in the conference tournament, getting matched up again against St. Mary's and finally getting the win in one of the worst shooting performances I've ever seen by a team ever there by St. Mary's. They did not make a single three-pointer in that game. I think they were 0 for 17 or 14 or something like that, but watching that game, it was pretty brutal, guys. No sign of that Gonzaga team that magically managed to average the third most points per game. They were playing against a real opponent as opposed to the dregs of the WCC, and it did not go well. Sure, you're second in the nation in assists. You're going to have to show me here against an actual basketball team, not this, I don't care how you did against Portland. Guys, that's just not going to do it for me. I don't think this Gonzaga team is very good. I know they've got guys that put up good numbers, but they don't have a ton of size. Their shooting is not incredible in my eyes. I am not loving what I'm seeing here from Gonzaga. They are 6.5-point favorites. We've got a total of 150.5. Georgia 1-3 against the spread on neutral courts, but 17-15 against the spread overall, and they're a significant under team. Gonzaga 4-5 against the spread on neutral courts, 14-19 against the spread, 19-13-1 to the over. I love Georgia here getting plus 6.5. I'll definitely have plenty of brackets in that with Georgia just straight up winning this game because I don't like Gonzaga. I don't think they're a very good team. I don't think they're very good. There's just no reason for me to think they're great except for the great numbers they put up against horrible, horrible teams. I guess they had a little bit of success there in the non-conference, but it was mostly just them playing close games against some kind of elite level teams. So we'll see what happens here, but definitely give me Georgia getting 6.5. Next up, guys, we've got number 15 Wofford taking on number 2 Tennessee. The Wofford Terriers only 19-15 on the season, 10-8 there in SoCon play, but when you get hot in the conference tournament, good things can happen. They knocked off Furman, and now they are in the big dance. So not an easy matchup, obviously. This team, not a monster leading scorer there in Corey Tripp, but 15 points per game, 3 assists per game. All right, that's fine, but this squad makes their money there on the boards. They're a very good rebounding team, or looked like it against the teams they played against. But when they played Duke in the non-conference, they lost 86-35. Not a great showing. Not a great showing. They did beat SLU, so I guess that's something. But this is not a team that's really got me super jazzed up. And now they got to take on the Tennessee Volunteers, who finished the year 6th in the nation, 27-7 overall, 12-6 in the very, very tough SEC. They got bounced out of their conference tournament by Florida, so that probably didn't feel great. After knocking off Auburn, they do have the letdown there against Florida, but this team has been tough this year, for sure. Chaz Lanier, almost 18 points per game, a monster. Ziegler, almost 8 assists per game while also putting up 14 points. This team is elite on defense, a crazy, crazy good defensive team. The rebounding numbers are nice. The offensive numbers are nice as well, but defense is really where they hang their hats. And Tennessee, guys, 18.5-point favorites, and I think they deserve it here. They're with a total of 133.5. Wofford's actually 4-1 against spread on a neutral court, but they're 16-17 against spread overall, and they're a slight over team. Tennessee 4-2 against the spread on neutral courts this season. 18-16 against spread, 19-15 out there to the under. This game's taking place in Kentucky. Tennessee and Kentucky, not all that far apart, and Tennessee kind of has fans all over the place. So I think they're going to have a good contingent of fans, even at this 15 versus 2 game. Guys, I'm taking Tennessee here to win this game by 20+. I don't think Wofford's that good. I think they're going to be happy to have just made it into the tournament. They know they don't have much of a chance in this matchup, and I don't think we're going to see any sort of miracle Cinderella upset. Give me Tennessee to win this one, walking away. Next up, we've got the number 10 Arkansas taking on number 7 Kansas. The Razorbacks 20-13 on the season. Didn't have a great time out there in the SEC, going 8-10 overall, but they've got some big wins mixed in there. When you're playing all these good teams night after night, you're going to get some big wins, and they've taken down teams like Mizzou. They took down Mississippi State. They took down Vanderbilt. This is a very good team. They're near top 100 in the nation in offense. They're a decent defensive team. Not the best rebounding team, but not a terrible rebounding team either. And they've got a couple monsters there leading the way. So we'll see what they can do here taking on the Kansas Jayhawks, a team that had a terrible season, especially by their standards out there in the Big 12. They were 11-9 in conference play, but only 21-12 overall. They got bounced out of their conference tournament, an 11-point loss against Arizona. And yeah, now sitting as a 7 seed kind of feels like a little bit of a gift for a team that just wasn't that good. Hunter Dickinson, Juwan Harris Jr., okay, cool, but not really enough to get me impressed. But the odds makers, not that upset about it. Kansas, 5-point favorites in this game. We've got a total of 145.5. Arkansas, 2-3-1 against spread on neutral court, 14-18-1 against spread overall, and a slight under team. Kansas, 2-2 against spread on neutral court, 15-18 against spread overall, 21-12 to the under. So they've been a big under team. I could wrap my head around under 145.5 in this game, but I really think you want to be looking at Arkansas getting points here. I just don't think the Jayhawks are very good in terms of, this game being located there. Not a great location for either team. This is in Providence, Rhode Island, so neither team going to be overly, comfortable. Give me Arkansas getting 5 in this one. I definitely think it's a reasonable play. Rolling right along here, guys, we've got the number 13 Yale Bulldogs taking on number 4 Texas A&M. Yale, 22-7 on the year, 13-1 in conference play. They dominated the Ivy League this season. John Pulakaitis, a monster, 20 points per game. This team has some other pieces as well, and they've been very, very good. They did play a close game against Cornell, but to end their regular season, but this team has everything that it takes. They're a top 26 offensive team, averaging around 82 per game. They're very good on the boards. They're very good defensively. They've put up some solid fights against some good teams in the non-conference, but losing against UIC isn't great. Keeping things close against Purdue looks good, but losing against Minnesota isn't great either. Obviously, that's early in the year, and this team has matured a lot, so we'll see what they can do here, taking on Texas A&M. The Aggies, number 19 in the nation coming into the tournament, 22-10 on the season. They lost to Texas in the conference tournament, so that's not exactly the best look. We'll see what Texas looks like tonight, but yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit worried about the Aggies. They've got very good pieces, a nice leading scorer there, and Wade Taylor IV. He's a good point guard as well. This team is dominant on the boards, which could be a problem there for Yale. They're a very solid defensive team as well, and the offense kind of takes care of itself. Looking at the numbers for this one, Texas A&M 7.5-point favorites. We've got a total of 139 out there. Yale 3-2 against spread on neutral court, 17-10-1 against the spread, 14-13-1 to the over. Texas A&M 2-3-1 against the spread on neutral court, 16-13-3 against the spread, and 19-13 to that under. So with this game going on in Denver, Colorado, I would say it definitely favors Texas A&M a little bit more, but being at a little bit of an elevation, that could be tough. This is a tough spot. Overall, this is a really, really tough spot. I'm leaning towards the favorite a little bit. Give me Texas A&M -7.5, but not going in the pinned comment. I'm just not sure if they can handle what Yale can throw at them. Next up, we've got the number 11 Drake Bulldogs taking on number 6 Mizzou. Drake, they come into this year 30-3 overall, 17-3 there in the MVC. They dominated out there, beating Bradley in just a blowout to win the conference tournament. Bennett Steeritz, a monster. This team can, the season-long numbers don't look that impressive, but they were winning and just kept on winning. They knocked off teams like FAU, Vanderbilt in the non-conference, beat Miami handily. This is a really, really freaking good team, despite the fact they're 300th in the nation in points per game. Liking a lot of what we're seeing from Drake here. They're taking on a Missouri Tigers team that, in my eyes at least, overachieved a little bit. They got bounced out of the conference tournament by Florida. Losing by 14 probably feels a little bit bad. They ended up 10th in the nation in points per game, but not a great rebounding team at all. Not a great defensive team either. And I mean, Mark Mitchell putting up 14 points per game, shooting over 50% from the field is cool, but this is a team that tends to kind of score by committee. In terms of their non-conference play, they did do a very good job, although losing to Memphis. After watching Memphis a bunch, doesn't look great. So Missouri, 6.5 point favorites here. We've got a total of 132.5. Drake, 6-1 this season on a neutral court. They are 17-14 against spread overall and 19-12 to the under. Mizzou, 2-1 against spread on a neutral court, 18-15 against spread, 20-13 to the over. I'm seeing a lot of people being on Drake, getting those 6.5 points, and I honestly think they've kind of got this one figured out. Give me the Drake Bulldogs getting 6.5 points in this one. I think this is a very, very solid play. I think they've got a chance to win this game straight up against a Missouri team that's being a little bit overrated, although Missouri did have 10 wins in the SEC, so I don't think they're a terrible team. I don't think this is going to be any sort of walkover, but I do think Drake can force this to be a one-possession game down the stretch. Next up, guys, we got the Utah State Aggies taking on the UCLA Bruins. Utah State ended the year 15-5 out there in the Mountain West. They lost to Colorado State there in the conference tournament, so that was a little bit rough, but Colorado State, guys, was a team on an absolute mission from God. It felt like it was crazy the run they've gone on. Ian Martinez leads the way for this team, 17 points per game, very solid stuff there. This is a great offensive team that plays a little bit of defense and struggles on the boards. That's really kind of the story of how things have gone this year for Utah State. Their non-conference didn't face a lot of crazy threats. They did knock off teams like Iowa, Northern Texas, but I'm not going to freak out about any of those. Beating St. Mary's looks pretty good. That looks okay. So we'll see what they do here against the UCLA Bruins, who are 22-10 on the year. This team was all over the place. We had their coach giving just unhinged meltdown rants at the podium, all kinds of stuff. They end up finishing the season 13-7. They're in the Big Ten. Weird to see them in the Big Ten, but hey, it is what it is. This team, no monster leading scorer, no monster offensive numbers either. They've also really, really sucked on the boards, but their defensive numbers are so good, it's kind of kept them in things. They did get shot out of the gym by Wisconsin, so that's kind of a bad look for them to end their conference tournament run, but we'll see what they can do here. The odds makers like them. They're 5.5 point favorites. We've got a total of 143.5. Utah State 1-3 against spread on a neutral court, 16-16 against spread overall, and a slight over team. UCLA 2-3 against spread on neutral court. They're very good 18-13-1 against the spread, and a slight under team themselves. I don't love UCLA here. They're a very good defensive team, don't get me wrong, but I think Utah State has what it takes to make this a tight game down the stretch. So give me the Aggies and the points here. I think this is a pretty reasonable spot. Next up, guys, we got the 15-2 matchup between Omaha and St. John's. The Omaha Mavericks 22-12 on the year. They did finish the season, the top team in the Summit League and took care of business there in the conference tournament, getting a win there against St. Thomas, Minnesota, I believe it was. And yeah, this team has done some good stuff. I mean, Markel Sutton, 20 points per game almost. J.J. White, 4 assists and almost 14 per game. Like, they've done some good things. They put up some decent numbers. This is a top 80 offensive team, but the defensive numbers, real lackluster. And that rebounding, a little bit suspect. In the non-conference, they really struggled against teams like Iowa State. Northern Iowa, they didn't do a good job against teams like Akron, lost against UNLV, lost against Minnesota. So not a team that had a ton of success in the non-conference. And speaking of non-conference opponents, now you get to take on the St. John's Red Storm, who have been storming all over the place. 18-2 out there in the Big East, the top squad out there. They win the conference tournament, taking down Creighton 82-66. So very, very dominant stuff there. They weren't even really threatened in the conference tournament. Like, this team looking crazy good. The defense, excellent. The rebounding, top 10 in the nation. The offense looking very good too. RJ Lewis Jr., 18, almost 19 points per game, shooting around 45% from the field. Like, this team is freaking good. Freaking really good. So, liking what we're seeing from St. John's, so are the odds makers. That's why they're 18.5 point favorites. We've got a total of 147.5. Omaha 4-1 against the spread on a neutral court, 23-9 against spread overall. Insane against spread numbers. 18-14 to the over. St. John's 4-1 against spread on a neutral court, 22-11-2 against the spread, and a slight under team. This is rough. I actually think I'm leaning towards Omaha just a little bit. St. John's doesn't need to go nuts in this game. They've had some injuries and stuff down the stretch as well, so I'm going to be siding with Omaha in the points in this one, but as a very, very small lean, St. John's could just run roughshod over them, but those are very good against spread numbers for Omaha, and St. John's being a little bit, they know they're going to win this game. I don't think they're going to be completely locked in. I also wouldn't hate taking Omaha maybe in the first half. Next up, guys, we got the number 12 UC San Diego Tritons taking on number 5 Michigan. This is also a game that's been getting tons of hype out there. We saw UC San Diego finish 18-2 in the Big West, taking care of business there against UCI and a 14-point win to earn them this NCAA tournament bid. This team, very, very, very good. Top 46, 45 in the nation, around 80 points per game. But the rebounding numbers are a concern, but not that big of a concern when you are nuts out there on defense. This team looked pretty good in the non-conference, beating teams like Utah State. That looks good. Taking down Toledo in a blowout. That looks pretty good as well. Didn't play a ton of crazy tough opponents there in the non-conference, but they looked really good in conference play, and now they get to go up against a Michigan team that didn't look great. They're 25-9 on the year. They got absolutely bounced a couple of times there in their, in conference play, which is going to happen a little bit. They did get the 59-53 win there over Wisconsin in the conference tournament, so that looks nice and all that, but yikes, guys. I mean, I don't know. That was a rock fight there in the conference championship game. This team over the course of the year, very good on the boards, pretty good defensively, decent offensively as well. Golden is a monster, 17 points, shooting, 63% from the field. I'm a little bit worried here about Michigan. I'm not going to lie. They're 2.5-point favorites in this game. We got a total of 142.5. UC San Diego is 5-0 against the spread on neutral courts, 25-7 against the spread on the year, 18-13-1 to the under. Michigan, 5-3 against the spread on neutral court, 16-18 against the spread, and 18-16 to the over. This has turned into a pretty brutal spot, guys. UC San Diego is getting so much love out there that I almost want to fade them at this point. So it feels pretty tough. I'm actually going to be leaning here just slightly towards Michigan, but this is a play that's going nowhere to the pinned comment. I really don't have a big lean on this game, to be honest. I need to see Michigan prove that they're an actual good team again to me a little bit, and UC San Diego, this could be a huge upset. It's not impossible. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but this is the one that I'm mostly staying away from. In our nightcap, guys, we've got the 14-3 matchup between UNC Wilmington and Texas Tech. The Seahawks come into this game 27-7 on the year. They took care of business there against Delaware to get the conference tournament championship win. We thought we'd probably see Townsend come out of the CAA, but it ends up being UNC Wilmington. I mean, Donovan Newby leading the way, 15 points, 4 assists per game. Nothing wrong with that. This is an elite offensive team that really crashes the boards and plays some good defense. They really have most of the ingredients that you need to make this a tough game against a higher seed. And we see number 3 Texas Tech. They come into this one 15-5 in the Big 12, which is not easy to do. 25-8 on the season. They got bounced out of the conference tournament by Arizona. Not exactly the best look there. And the games before that were looking a little shaky. Like they beat Baylor by only 2. Like this team has had some tough losses, losing against TCU, for example. So we'll see what they do in this one. This has been a good team over the course of the year, but their rebounding numbers do worry me a little bit. JT Toppin, obviously a monster. Like you got somebody you can just throw the ball to, and he's going to go get a bucket the vast majority of the time. Bro is shooting 55% from the field, averaging 18 points per game. So I'm not throwing a bunch of shade here at Texas Tech, but I'm just a little bit concerned about the way they played down the stretch this season. So seeing them as 14.5-point favorites feels a little bit much. We've got a total of 142.5. UNC Wilmington 1-2 against the spread on neutral courts, 20-12 against the spread this season, and 16-15-1 to the over. Texas Tech 0-5 against the spread this year on neutral courts, 17-16 against the spread, and 18-14 to the over. I'm going to take UNC Wilmington and the points in this one, guys. It's a late game, so it's definitely one we want to be on. I mean, we're going to be up late watching these games. It's very exciting stuff. Give me UNC Wilmington and the points. This is one of the bigger underdogs that I think has a real shot to end up in the pinned comment. All the NCAA tournament games for today, guys. Hit that like button for good luck on all of your bets and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Let me know in the comments any questions you have on today's slate. If you want to see our premium top confidence picks throughout the entire NCAA tournament, get over to stumpthespread.com and sign up for a premium membership. Also, you're going to have time when you see this video. Get in on that bracket challenge we've got there. Links down in the description. The password's down in the description. Get in there. Tons of free value out there for you guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow where we'll break down every NCAA game once again. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you then for more sports betting action.